The 4-minute offense. This is where we're going to get into the G5 spotlight game, talk a little bit of historical angles, talk about some coaching before we get into our plays, which the synergy is perfect this week because our best bets, number 2 for each of us, touch on Stanford, Hawaii out on the islands. If you listen to Colin and Stuck break down the trees in the ACC preview, this is a bad situation for the Cardinal. There's a chance, according to Stuckey, you look at some other projections out there in the market, that they could be an underdog in every single game this season. So yes, they are a P4 team. Yes, they're traveling out there. This is an opportunity for Hawaii, but they are no heavyweight by any stretch. They had a highly touted quarterback in Elijah Brown. He didn't even win the starting job. The defense lost their only true superstar to David Bailey to the Texas Tech Matador Club. They end up opening their coffers, paying him a bundle to come help their pass rush. He was the only one that was ascending from a defensive perspective. And now you have this road trip to Hawaii, who is in a rare home favorite spot, at least under Timmy Chang. Since he's arrived at Hawaii, he's a perfect 6-0 straight up as a home favorite and 4-1-1 against the closing number. Playing in Ching Athletic Complex, you're going to get a sellout or close to it. It's a very small place. It's a bandbox. It's like 16,000. I think the atmosphere is going to be pretty electric for this when you consider Micah Alihado is set to take the field as their QB1. He's a program savior. He's someone who was born on the island. This just has a different energy based on where they were last year. Stanford, by the way, if you want to talk home and away splits and what they've done, 3-9 for the 4th straight season in 2024. And as a road underdog in this stretch, this awful 4-year stretch where they're only winning 3 games a season, against the spread, 6-13-1. Those are the most against the spread losses as a road underdog of any team in America in that stretch. So they keep getting in this spot. They keep underperforming. They keep rolling over, and opposing teams are cashing tickets at the window. But this wouldn't be a Hawaii game without a weather report, and this one is incredibly meaningful. Give us your best Jim Cantore impersonation, Duck. What is the weather going to be out in the South Pacific?
Well, the current projections are going to be wind, and it's going to be a sustained wind of 18 to 22 with gusts up to 26 or 27. So I think that that's just something to keep an eye on. We're still a little ways out from nailing down the exact wind speeds, but there's going to be wind on the island. There's a consistent wind this time of year, and we'll see it affect this game in some capacity with them having to battle through windy conditions at Hawaii this upcoming Saturday. I think it's really fascinating, too, to just think about this. I'm not quite ready to crown Alihado as the next Cole McDonald or Bryant Moniz or even Braden Shager here with the Hawaii offense, although they really did let him rip it against New Mexico in that season finale. I think it was a little bit of a different situation because their season was already over. They weren't playing for a bowl game. Shager was hurt, and so yeah, let's let the local kid rip it and see what he's got. This, I think, has to be considered a must-win for Hawaii, as they have got to get all the wins that they possibly can in order to put themselves in position to make a bowl game this season, and I think Timmy Chang knows that. So I think that they'll certainly do their fair share of passing, but even last year in the air raid system, we didn't see as much tempo. We saw them operate methodically, and they did try to run the ball a little bit more. And I think Timmy Chang knows that they are successful as a team when they have success running the ball, which I think they'll be able to do against Stanford in this game. So, we perceive Hawaii to be this pass-happy bunch that throws it around, and that's kind of what we saw way back to the Colt Brennan days. But I just don't know if we're going to see him sling it around 50 times in this game. I think we'll see our fair share of passing, but I think Hawaii will actually try to run the ball a little bit more than expected in this week 0 opener. And with Stanford, they're going to more of a pro-style attack. We've got Frank Reich and Nate Bynum that both have their fingerprint on the offensive system. They're going to use some tight ends. The pass game is going to be predominantly shorter routes to the tight ends. And with guys like Alec Iomanner and Mosley that are gone on the outside, and you bring in Ben Gulbranson, who's not really a guy that feasts downfield with explosivity, I just don't see a ton of the chunk plays for Stanford. We've got an offensive line that was kind of piecemealed together and doesn't necessarily grade out okay. So we'll really see what they've got along the offensive line. One thing that I think is significantly underrated in this matchup is the Hawaii defense. They return a tremendous amount of production on defense. At times, they performed really well against the run. And the secondary, they were a little susceptible to explosivity, but the secondary played really well, and they get a shot in the arm with Virgil Edwards returning alongside Peter Manuma in the secondary. So I think that Hawaii has the upper hand on the Stanford offense. I don't think we're going to get a tremendous amount of pace here. Everything just seems to be pointing to being difficult for Stanford when they have the ball against this Hawaii offense. You already have the travel. You're breaking in new players at all the levels of offense in every room. You've got a quarterback that doesn't really gain a tremendous amount of explosives. The running back room, they need to figure out what they have. The outside weapons on the outside are gone. It just seems like a struggle. And when Stanford does get into the red zone, if they do, Hawaii actually was sneaky good in red zone defense last season. 44 red zone attempts against them, only 25 touchdowns allowed, and they held opponents to 13 red zone field goals. So even if Stanford does get down there, they have a field goal operation that they trust, and I can just kind of see this one being conservative play calling. Let's take the 3 points. So my second best bet, which coincides with our deep dive here of this Stanford Hawaii game, is I took Stanford team total under 26.5. I think it's going to be a struggle for Stanford all game to really get in a rhythm offensively, and I just think that they're really underskilled, even more than they're leading on. I don't think this team is very talented offensively, and Hawaii has a significant upper hand with what they bring back on defense.
I'm going to stick with this side for my best bet. I like the Bows laying 2.5. And what I feel as though I'm getting walking into this week 0 matchup, a motivated, healthy, experienced Warrior team with juice. Alejado brings the juice. I went back and I watched the entire game against New Mexico. He can make all of the throws in this offense. I understand that New Mexico's defense was buns. That's fine. There's still, whether you're throwing even against air, can you layer these passes in? I've just done the entire baseball season with Sean Zerillo, and he always talks about pitch mix. When it comes to quarterbacks, is everything a bullet? Can you layer it in there? Can you throw with anticipation? Alejado absolutely can. And this offense is also a quarterback's best friend, even in a windy situation, because they can play pickleball if they want to. They can shrink down the area that they're attacking on the field because they attack all the way across. So you got some, pre-snap reads that you see. He's not reading the defense as soon as the ball snapped. He's read it before they've even snapped the ball. So it's out of his hands immediately. They put in the RPOs, those read option plays for him. And also, when you talk about the run game, you have to mention him as well, because Timmy Chang, in terms of being a play caller, seventh highest percentage, I should say, of quarterback design runs of any play caller in the country in the last 5 years. So I think there's an opportunity to get Alejado healthy in this game, to go in and be dynamic. He went for over 50 rushing yards against New Mexico in that one start. And as I also said at the top with the Cardinal, with no David Bailey being a game plan wrecker, I think, you also have to turn your eyes to that secondary that is very green, and they're going to have to throw some extra manpower back there in terms of dropping zones just to be able to avoid those explosive plays. That means more time in the pocket for this kid to work and kind of pick them apart. When I'm saying that they're green, like Jordan Washington is going to start at one of their cornerback positions. He was at Dartmouth last year. I'm not saying the kid can't play. I'm just saying when you look at it up against this wide receiver core for Hawaii, that for my money, if they're all healthy and they're all playing at the absolute peak of their game, some of the best receivers in the G5 as a trio. When you look at Senecal, Ashlock, and then the Stanford transfer, Jackson Harris, who just got rave reviews the whole way. And I'm really glad that you talked about some of the issues and poking a hole in what Stanford brings to the table here, because they used to have that trademark toughness under David Shaw. Where was the toughness last year? They finished 116th in line yards. Now, Hawaii has 7 starters back on the defensive side, but they also went to the portal and got some big wins. I mentioned the Stanford wide receiver on offense. On defense, Luther McCoy comes in from Minnesota at defensive tackle. He's somebody that, at least, being healthy in game 1 for the Rainbow Warriors, is going to be someone who helps them in terms of their run defense. So are they going to get shoved around with a veteran linebacking core behind them as well? I don't think so. And Virgil Edwards, as you said, back in the secondary, he's somebody who could probably make the NFL if he can go ahead and stay healthy. I think the game plan is going to be simple against Gulbranson. which is stack the box, stop the run, say, hey, there's 20-mile-an-hour gusts. Good luck throwing 25 yards downfield against a veteran secondary as well. We're just going to put pressure on you and hope you make mistakes. I'm shocked that this hasn't cruised past the key number of 3. I would still play it up into the 4, 4.5, 5 range. I think this is going to be a coming out party for Alejado. I think this is the savior job season for Timmy Chang. All of their home games this year are winnable, including this one. I think they get off to a hot start. They make a statement. And Stanford, he's just keeping the seat warm. Frank Wright is not going to be the guy who's going to be the head coach in 2026. They're going to have a full-fledged job search. They're going to have the added advantage of being the first one to the trough and being able to vet all of these coaches throughout the season. That's all Andrew Luck and his staff are working on. So I think this is all looking over the horizon for Stanford, and I think Hawaii is going to take advantage here and go ahead and cash the win. Any other thoughts here on this game out on the islands?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the urgency is at an all-time high for Hawaii. They need to see the progress. They need to get to a bowl game for Timmy Chang. They've really supported him from an administration perspective. It's just now time to put the product on the field. And I think that they have the team to go out and get to bowl eligibility this year. And really it starts and ends with home performances like this. They've been really disappointing in priors in these sort of situations, but I think this might be the year they get over the hump.